where
bring something up. Is Palantir an acquisition target?
It can't be because of the F shares.
Who would want to buy them? Who would want to take on all the controversy
I got 3 companies that would want to buy them.
You would fire Carp immediately if you buy them. You're not going to have Carp run it. Right?
I don't know. I think that this is I'm not saying that it would happen like Dom said, the F shares and whatnot, but you think about it, or when I think about it, there are 3 companies that come to my mind. I'll give you guys you take some guesses before I rattle them off.
Microsoft.
Google. Not one of them.
Oracle.
Yes.
Okay.
Got 2 more that I'm thinking of.
Salesforce.
No.
Accenture.
No.
Accenture. That would be interesting.
They're partners.
Oracle's up. We only got 1 out of 3, or Databricks.
You got 1 out of 3. They're bigger companies, over 100 million market cap.
IBM.
Over 100 million.
IBM.
That's another one. Got 1 more outlier. I'll give you a hint. It's one of the biggest companies in the world.
Amazon. Google.
Close.
One of the biggest companies in the world.
Facebook?
Don't say it. Don't say it. We got to guess this. Snowflake. Wait, no, Snowflake's not.
No, they're not.
You guys are so close.
NVIDIA.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Biggest company in the world? There's only
top
Apple.
Company.
No, Apple's not.
Tesla. It's the only one you guys haven't said.
Netflix? No,
Wait,
hold on.
You said Apple, you said Microsoft, you said Amazon, you said Meta. You haven't said the other one.
Don't say it.
I said Google, but
I didn't hear you then.
I said Google early on.
Yeah, I think we were talking over each other.
Okay, so here's why. Crazy 1 minute, crazy thought here. Google and IBM are not going to catch Microsoft or Amazon with cloud. It's not going to happen. I have a crazy theory. Google would be better off buying IBM because of their cloud and consulting services and the free cash flow machine that IBM is, and their hybrid cloud would fit great into Google's infrastructure. Same with their AI. But both of them, either IBM or Google, would benefit drastically by acquiring Palantir and integrating what Palantir does with their cloud platforms and also their consulting businesses.
Yeah, if Google wouldn't even take on the Project Maven contract, you think they're going to buy Palantir?
Yeah, but they get the IL6 with Palantir. They only have IL5, I believe.
No, they don't even have IL5.
What do they have?
They're IL4.
Okay, 4.
Yeah. You only have IL6's Palantir, Amazon, and
Microsoft and Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. And now they actually have an IL6 program they're trying to help companies charge to get IL6 certified, which is brilliant on Palantir's part.
It is absolutely brilliant because they can be the backer.
But I mean, that would throw everybody for a loop if Karp and Peter said, "We're done. We're gonna sell out."
Think about it. The market cap is $14.58 billion.
Yeah, it's cheap.
It's not a big. Yes, it's a big company, but in the grand scheme of things, what does Google have in cash? $70 billion.
But I think that's why Karp is so bullish, right? When he said Palantir could be 20 times bigger, he's looking at 14, even 20, even $25 billion in market cap. And he's like, motherfucker, we can be everywhere. Like, I don't think his ambition is small, Yeah,
but okay, to get to that, his ambition is obviously big, but to get to a bigger valuation, realistically, what do they have to get to? Let's look at Salesforce real quick. Salesforce is a very good example. Their market cap is $130 billion, but you look at their revenue, $30 billion in the TTM. Okay, their free cash flow is around $5.5 billion. So realistically, what does Palantir need to do?
Well, let me put a question. Let me put a question back at you, Steve. As Dom said, or Matt, people were buying Tesla because of what they thought could happen. Like, is there any world in which the fundamentals sway a little bit off and people still buy, Wall Street still buys Palantir?
Well,
I mean,
of
that's what
course.
happened. That's what
Of
happened in
course.
2021, right? I mean,
Because
people were
look
paying
what people did
$40 a
with
share.
Tesla. Look, at some point, numbers matter, and at some point, fundamentals matter, and at some point, the amount of profits that a company makes matters. And you can say that a company is going to do X, Y, Z, but until they do it, it's not true.
This goes back to a conversation I was having on SoFi that if Elon wasn't part of Tesla, Tesla would be nowhere near the valuation. But if it, like, for example, we're buying at $6-7. Imagine Palantir 2030 is supposed to be worth $110, and it somehow is up to $220. All of us would sell at that point. We would deserve to sell, right? And if it's supposed to be 110, then sucks for the people buying it at 100, but they didn't take on the risk we took. So I mean, my question is there a world in which retail and Wall Street gives Palantir the premium, even if, just like they gave Tesla 1 trillion, even though Tesla didn't really deserve it, right? Is there a world in which you could give that?
Can we stop talking about a share price and talk about market cap?
That's what I'm saying. Market cap.
Okay.
250 would be it would be $250 at 3% dilution every year would be close to about $400 billion market cap. Share price. 500 would be $1 trillion market cap in 2030.
I'd still have half my position, but I would trim.
But that's my question is,
I don't know if I would. I don't. If somehow it pulled that off, I would probably exit. I would probably set it up in stages to exit. I'd probably fully be out by that point.
But here's my question. I think this is a really good question, or at least I want to have the discussion. People gave Tesla the trillion, and some would argue even right now it's overvalued because of a lot of things: robots, energy, all this shit that's really not real. I mean, the customer service on energy I heard is horrible. Robots, whatever. It essentially was Elon, right? Karp is not Elon. He doesn't have the 120 million followers. But you look at Palantir from a government perspective, from an just pure AI play, just like tech that's really, no one can replicate that. Snowflake is not stopping a future pandemic with the CDC. They're not working in Ukraine. Is there any world in which investors collectively give them that additional premium? Not to the tune of $1 trillion,
because it's not flashy,
but still
product.
high.
Look, here's the difference. Tesla is a consumer product. Apple is a consumer product. Microsoft is a consumer product. Amazon is a consumer product and business product with AWS. Palantir is an enterprise software platform. You're never going to get that facade or whatever you want to call it. You're not going to get that it factor because it's not a consumer product. I mean, it can be the greatest enterprise software platform there is, but if you don't have it and people are not buying it in their individual lives, I don't see it getting to some crazy $1 trillion or $500 billion.
I'm not saying those kind of numbers. I would venture to say we're at what, 13, 14 price to sales.
14 and a half. Oh, price of sales. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I haven't looked at it recently, but it's very affordable. So to answer your question, is it far-fetched to think that in 3 years from now, we couldn't have a price to sales ratio of 30, 35?
But hold on. Price to sales is such a bad metric to look at because any company that buys another company on a price to sales methodology, they may never get that money back because it all depends on profitability.
Understand, but to Matt's point about Tesla, these high-flying technology companies that keep innovating and innovating and innovating, people start buying and value is perceived. Right, like
100%.
So like fundamentals and what something is actually worth versus what people are willing to pay for a share price.
Okay, but going on that premise, Dom, and I agree 100% with you on that premise. But going on that premise, can Palantir get that valuation on the premise when people individually are not using the product?
If they have a mass amount of enterprises, more than what they have now, yes. If they don't, then no.
I disagree. They don't have one of these. You know, they don't have a Tesla that's driving around and everybody thinks
that companies are building apps on top of their platforms, right? So, and people are using their cell phones for integrating with Foundry and using it to get business outcomes.
How many people are actually using that in the, think about how many people.
That's what tells us what the runway is, right?
As a subset of the U.S. U.S. has what, 380 million people? How many people are actually interengaging with Palantir?
Right. So my point is they have 350 customers, something like that now. okay, what does it look like when they have?
Say they double it, go to 700.
Yeah, well, I would it need to be higher than that.
Go
So
with that.
I'm saying let's go 3,000 customers,
Okay.
and by that time, we're now all of a sudden seeing them into actual markets where they're working the full system like Airbus in multiple markets and seeing that expand. I think Wall Street would recognize that, especially if the military piece of the business were to take off, because we know that the military spending will, get better eventually. Not saying that it's not a tall feat, but I don't think, and I'm not saying $1 trillion market. I'm saying here like $100 market share. Like they're at $6. Could they or get to 60? Could they 10x without having a consumer product? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's very feasible. I think they could get to, if you give them enough time.
Right,
And
it's going to take time.
I think 100 to 150 billion market cap is reachable in the next 10 years, maybe a little longer, but it's a good replication of a Salesforce, because Salesforce doesn't really have a consumer product outside of business. You make the argument large, small.
Same with
medium business.
IBM. Yeah.
I not to cut you off, but I do not think Salesforce is a good example. It's a good example because they don't have a consumer product. They're SaaS.
But
I
that's
get it.
one reason why I use it, and they have a 30 billion.
But the
revenue.
problem is they don't have a military business that CodeStrap has argued. I think we all respect his opinion.
But I get
hold on,
that.
let me get this out.
Hold on.
CodeStrap has argued the government, Gotham is a $100 billion market cap by itself. That's a $100 billion business by itself. One could argue in a geopolitical world, I'm not even going super technical. I'm just saying if the world gets more shittier, like let's factor that into our analysis, that matters. Second of all, Salesforce doesn't have a technology that is it's a customer relation data. Like what's so special about
like a lot more than CRM, buddy.
Yeah, but the
Salesforce before you say they're just a CRM.
But the network effects we're talking about with Palantir, I don't think are as integrated deeply when we come to a sales in terms of a Skynet at Airbus.
So hold on. How do you quantify, or how do you put a value on the importance of a software? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to dollars and cents. You can have the software, which is critical to national security and critical to the military. But if the company is not generating a larger revenue and larger profit, how can you actually make an argument that because of how important it is theoretically, it should have a higher valuation?
No, they will. They'll get more money because they'll get more deals. I mean, like I'm not saying they won't.
With Salesforce, the reason why it's a good example is because they are doing 30 billion in revenue and 5.5 billion in free cash flow, and they have 130 billion market cap. So if Palantir software, and I think we all agree how amazing and the value is to these different entities, but how do you actually quantify it? We all speculate that it has amazing value, but it's not showing the numbers.
The problem also is Salesforce market cap. First of all, Salesforce was at 307 November 12th, 2021.
Down a lot.
Yeah, so the market cap was not 128 billion. It was about 300 billion roundabout when it was at its highest.
Every company's come down, even Apple's come down.
But that's what I'm saying. In a better interest rate macro environment, would we? That's my question here. Would we not give that premium to Palantir? Because Salesforce was doing less than 30 billion TTM in 2021 when it was at.
Are you asking, would you give them that now, or are you saying in the future?
No, obviously not. I'm asking when the macro gets better, and using Steven's example of them just being a SaaS, not a consumer business, do we still give them that premium when if they are 60, we might give them an $80 share price or a market cap?
I think they're going to have to definitely get their customer growth up. They're going to have to get over 25% revenue growth year over year. They're going to have to get back to the 30s. And I think that one of the pivots that really will start setting the stock up, of course, the macro plays a role in this, is once they turn profitable, and if they still have a clean balance sheet, and the SBC is lower, I think Wall Street's going to flip their script and be like, okay, we're onto the story now. Like they've listened, they've done it, and doing it their way, and now all of a sudden, Dom Rinaldi's shield stem. I don't know what shield means, but I do own a lot. I'm old. But
Trolls in the comments, man.
I do own a lot of STEM, and actually, I'd love to hear his take.
Ooh, I'm a STEM shareholder.
Yeah. As I say, I figured with energy, Matt may even have some STEM.
I'm definitely a STEM
Nope.
shareholder. Interesting company. Admit I'm
also-
sending you something if you could throw it up.
Okay. Just on my
It
email.
goes into the exact conversation we're having.
But yeah, I'll pull it up. But that's just my question, right? I agree with you, Steven. Your example about Salesforce is 100% on the money. It's the best example. It's just that Salesforce.
At some point, it has to come to the numbers. And I just think that too many people think about these huge things. I like to think about what's possible. 150 billion, I think, is possible at some point.
Yeah, I agree. It's possible. The question is, will the share price be worth even more than that because of the Tesla-like premium investors give to Tesla? I know that's an Elon Musk thing.
I
My
don't
question is,
think
could
it
that
gets a
happen?
Tesla premium. I just don't see it.
Your Salesforce analogy is spot on. Actually, I'm looking at when it IPO'd. Keep in mind, we've only been public 2 years. They IPO'd at $3.95 or $4 a share in 2004. 10 years later, they're $54. So that's a little over a 10x there, right? And in 10 years. So where will we be in 8 years from now? Do we think that they could 10x in 8 years from now? And that would put us at 2030.
Yeah, I mean, look, I did a lot of calculations trying to redo my investment thesis and projection out to 2030. I believe these were 3 different scenarios. I did a poor, I did a good, and I did a strong. And I gave them free cash flow multiples of 25, 30, and 35. And look, these are my numbers. This may not occur, obviously. It's in my latest Palantir article, and you'd have to look at the other charts to really understand this, but I'm going to run you through it real quick. My bull case, like what I think is probably the top end by 2030, if it happens, and these are all my numbers. This could all not happen. I mean, I think there's a chance Palantir may only go up by 44% from today's value by 2030 in a very bad scenario that revenue growth continues to stall. But in a good revenue growth market where their free cash flow margin is around 21%, where it was last year, based on a 35x multiple on free cash flow, they could be 112 billion market cap in 2030 if they're generating 3.6 billion in free cash flow. I mean, at a 25 free cash flow multiple and that 3.6 billion free cash flow, that's still a 76 billion market cap. So I think there's a lot of possibilities here, but these are just my opinions. I don't think it has a Tesla network effect as far as the valuation. I think going to 2030, you're not going to see Palantir have a 75 or 76x free cash flow multiple. It's just not going to happen. It's going to continue to come down as they age, and they're going to have to get their margins under control. The margins came down this year. Their growth is coming down. You're going to need that to go back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, and I would Tanner. At the end of the day,
from now until 2030. I know people in 2020 had some unrealistic returns that weren't normal, but a 6-bagger from now in 8 years, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, same here. I mean, going up, my true bull case, like the highest end bull case for me is 7.5x from now till 2030. But that's like my top bull range. Now, I don't actually know if I really believe that's going to happen. I think maybe 60 to 80 billion market cap by 2030 is more realistic because unless something changes, I don't see them having the pizzazz that Apple or a Tesla does because it's not something tangible in your hand you hold.